Today we're talking to Toulouse Engelhardt, 12-string fingerstyle virtuoso. He's got a new album, Mind Gardens, coming out November 18th.
Correct, yeah.
And before we talk about that, I was going to ask you a little bit about, you were the last member of the Takoma Seven, John Fahey's Takoma label.
Well, it's kind of a moniker. I've got a couple of monikers these days. They also call me the Segovia of Surf. That's a whole nother.
I've seen that.
You saw that, yeah.
That's a lot to live up to.
Yeah, that's a lot to live up to.
Some great surf guitarists.
The problem with it is, when I go out, it's stuck with me now, and wherever I go, the Segovia of Surf, people expect me to walk out there and do a 30-minute version of Wipeout, and I'm not going to do that, so I don't want to disappoint anybody.
Well, 20 minutes is long enough.
Yeah. But anyway, the bottom line is that over the years, the press, somebody put that together and said I was the youngest guy that Fahey worked with, and he was really rough on me. He was a very strange guy, and it was a real honor. But I was a 20-year-old kid.
How would he be rough on you? What would he?
Well, he was critical of my work, and when in the beginning, but it affected me a lot, and it was a big deal to be criticized by one of the greats. But I know now, after all these years, that he was my mentor, and he was trying to make me into what he thought I should be. I remember him telling me, he said, he had a funny kind of peculiar voice. He said, you have to remember, you're the next guy. You're the next gunslinger that's going to go into the OK Corral. And he goes, I'm going to mold you.
But you were also on the Byrds' final tour in the early 70s.
Yeah, that was probably my biggest break.
That was before the Takoma Seven.
Yeah.
What are your memories of that?
Oh, that's how I got the break. That's how I got my first real break. It was just great. And the band then was just Roger McGuinn and Clarence White. Graham Parsons wasn't there anymore, and Chris Hillman had already left. I've worked with pretty much all those guys independently over the years.
Tell us about Mind Gardens.
Well, Mind Gardens, I actually started recording a year ago, and I just, everybody always says this to me. And I mentioned this on stage. They said, where have you been? Where'd you go? Because I vanished for almost a decade. And I couldn't deal with a lot of the pressure of, Santa Monica Boulevard and signing a record contract and having to do 2 or 3 records a year. I'm a really slow composer. Like I said last night, in fact, I'm so slow, I put out an acoustic guitar album about once every 30 years. So Mind Gardens is a big deal for me. And I started working on it a year ago. And I would just go in. I had a really nice room where I could go in. The guy's really cool. And he said, hey, Toulouse, come on in and lay a couple tracks down. And I started working on some things, and this was in October of last year. And I'd go in and do just one tune, get it down well, feel good with it, go home, sleep on it. Before you know it, you got an album done. There's 13 novelettes on there, and in a way, it's an introspective story of my life. There's a couple of real burners, one of the ones I played earlier, and then there's some real dreamy, slow stuff. And I even, one of my favorite classical composers is Poulenc, a French composer, and I didn't know this, but he didn't write. I didn't think he wrote guitar music for classical guitar, but the Sarabande he did write in 1960. So what I did is, it's really hard to play those kind of out of the first position on a 12-string guitar. I mean, it really is difficult unless you're in a low tuning. And so I wanted to be loyal to the score, so I got a copy of the music, and he wrote the composition in 1960 for Ida Presti, who would have been one of the great female classical guitar players of all time, but she died young, and it's a sad kind of somber piece. But I thought, I'm going to try to arrange this. So I figured out a way by, I'm loyal to the score, but and I kept it at pitch and everything just the way he would have liked it. And there's not one note in the piece that I recorded that isn't the way he would have written it out. But I had to transcribe it to the 12-string guitar. So without doing bars and doing it in more of the first position, the first 4 frets. And it really came out nice. I'm very happy with that one too.
No, I couldn't help noticing when you raised your finger there, those brass finger picks. Yeah. Talk about those a little bit.
Well, Leo, John, and all the guys all use these National Steel picks. These are actually brass, and I like those better. But Leo, I guess, later on, a lot of these guys, they get problems with their skin, or, their muscles. They get a little tendonitis, and they do pull on you, and your hands do cramp a little bit when you're playing as fast as I do. And a lot of the more contemporary guitar players have given these, don't do this. Plus, it's hard to control where you're going. You just have to learn how to do it. But John used these, and I know Leo and Peter Lang and some of the other guys that were in the Seven.
Now you have a couple interesting guitars there.
Oh,
the
do I
Art
ever?
Davis, you were saying, once belonged to Jackson Browne?
That's the rumor.
Wow.
There it is right there. But the story about this guitar is even more fantastic. Art's a builder down in San Diego, and he used to work for Taylor, and he went out and started his own company. And from what I understand, this is a story he told me, that they tried to get endorsement from Jackson. It's always, when you're a small company, it's always great to get the big boys
Sure.
to stand behind your product. And so Jackson took this guitar. I believe he had it for a couple of years, and then he brought it back, and he decided that, okay, maybe I'll think about it. He returned the guitar, and so I met Art Davis, and he said, "Come on down, and we want to talk to you." And I went down into his agent's living room, and he had a big circle of horseshoe of guitars.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, "Come on in." He goes, "Play whatever you want. Tell me what you think." And I sat down there on his sofa, and I just started playing. And of course, I eyeballed this one right away.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, "I'll pick that one." I started playing it like that. And he goes, "What do you think?" And I said, "It's beautiful. I love it." And he goes, "Okay, it's yours." I said, "What?" And all of a sudden, his partner comes around, and he had I don't know what it was. It was obviously another Davis guitar, but it was a 6-string. And he hands me a Sharpie. He says, "Here, sign. You're now on the team."
I read a quote from you recently where you had said to pursue a career as a solo guitarist. One has to be somewhat of a masochist, a
Yes.
contortionist, and just a little bit crazy.
That sums it up. I don't have to say anything, do I? Yeah. That's exactly how I feel. But somebody's got to keep this form of art alive. I have my unique way of approaching the instrument, and I'm just too loose. What can I say? That's a monster. That is a monster play.